joining us today on Energy Incorporated's Thrive Live programming. We're really excited that you're checking us out on our social media, that you're seeing this. Please like it, share it, subscribe to our channel on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever else we might find ourselves in the next few days and next few weeks. Wherever you find us, like us there. Today we're going to continue talking about opioid use and this journey to sobriety. We're going to have our guest today is going to be Lily Evergreen. Lily is not coming on the screen for personal and private reasons, and the name has been changed also for privacy reasons. This episode, we're going to highlight a personal journey and recovery story. We're going to talk about overcoming addictions to opioids and also explore the role of support networks, therapy, addiction treatment programs, and achieving long-term sobriety. Through our real-life experience, we're going to hear and share some insights, some expert maybe advice. And we're going to explore the ways that we continue to invite people in as opposed to pushing them out, the way that we eliminate stigma, that we recognize that all people deserve dignity and respect, and they deserve our support. We practice a harm reduction model through our program. And so we're going to talk about some of those ways of helping people to move towards sobriety, move towards healthy living as they are able to do so. So again, welcome today, Lily. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's actually great to be here.
Awesome. So Lily, as I was explaining in our introduction, we have these conversations and we thrive ourselves and love that we are using real stories with real people with real solutions. And so you are one of the first for this particular season. And so we're glad to have you on board with us
I feel honored.
this day. And so if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your story, and you can share whatever you're comfortable with sharing, and I'll poke and prod along the way. And when it's too much, you say, ouch, leave me alone, and I will.
Will do. So my name is Lily. It starts all the way back when I was a kid, I guess. You could say I grew up under religious oppression. I was part of a fanatical religious group with my mother, very patriarchal, and taught me to always follow the man. I guess you could say the man does lead. Well, I unfortunately, when I was 17, got involved with somebody who'd been to prison and was a drug addict. And I didn't realize I tried to make everything perfect. And when I found out, or when he started beating me and so much more, he had me turn to drugs. And then when I found out what he did to other children, he turned out to be a pedophile. The only way to escape it was for me to get onto drugs, at least so I thought. So I lived in that world trying to numb myself from my pain and find myself from who I was. And from there, I was couch hopping. I was living in my car. I was just, getting high any way I possibly could, just to, like I said, dull that pain. And it took me years being at my rock bottom. I was homeless. Fortunately hadn't been able to get high for a long time. Found myself pregnant and homeless. And my daughter changed my life for me. I had to go to a homeless shelter. It was a struggle. Those shelters are no joke when it comes to the pressures it puts on you and depending on who's running them. And I had to leave that place as quickly as I could. Unfortunately, my friend at the time gave me a place to stay. And it was so far removed from any of the opioid addiction or any of the drugs I was using that I didn't even know where to find it. So I really just had to remove myself from that situation. And from there, it's been nothing but therapy and doing what's best for my daughter. And now I am a business owner and I do a lot of volunteer work. I am an advocate for therapy and getting help, mental health issues, things like that. And I've really turned myself around. It's been a nice life to realize that I can fully function now in the real world without having to numb it anymore.
So thank you for sharing your story, Lily. aspects of that are really resonate, I think, with lots of people in our communities across the DMV area as well as around the nation, maybe even around the world. That those there are some reoccurring themes and stories that we have heard a lot from lots of people. But in your particular situation, if help me understand, were you saying that you basically got off of the drugs because you were in a situation where you actually couldn't get them, or was there a turning point in your life where you said, I've got to stop doing this?
The turning point was I had to stop doing it for my daughter. Like I said, I
Okay.
got pregnant, and I hadn't been able to get some for a bit. And so I got pregnant in between that time. And thankfully I was clean when I got pregnant with her, but she was my whole turning point. She was my life from
Okay.
then on.
Mhm. Okay. So you had a reason to stay here. How did you know? Did you know that not using was important during your pregnancy, or is it something you just sort of got told when you got pregnant, or did you already
I
know that? Or,
knew.
yeah.
I knew it was intrinsic. I mean, I knew while I was doing it that it wasn't the right thing to do the whole
Mm,
time. It was, but then I realized I have another human being I'm responsible for, that I don't want her to grow up in this world. One, I don't want to give birth to a baby that's addicted, but two, I don't want her to be part of that world, period.
mhm.
I want to protect her from seeing the things that I've seen, doing the things that I've done. So that's been my main focus.
That's great. That's great. Can you share maybe a little bit more about, let's go back a little bit back in time. You said something started when you were a kid. What were the things that were happening around you? Was that the just the religious kind of pressures that you were under in that time frame that led you to this place of seeking something outside of yourself in
Uh,
someone, or were there drugs around you even as a kid?
no, I grew up in a very restrictive religion. I won't say which one it was, but my whole life was made for me. I was told who my friends were. We weren't allowed to associate any without with anybody outside of the same religion.
Hmm.
Um, Men were always the one to take the lead. Women were nothing but to be in submission, that sort of thing. And take
Hmm.
with it what you want, who that is, what religion that is. But um, I grew up sheltered in a way, but I was also made to think because I always like had different ideas than them. I thought I was a bad person, so I thought I deserved bad things.
Hmm.
So that's where that started, that self-loathing, thinking I was just a bad person, so therefore I should do bad things kind of thing.
So, what do you think now? Do you think that's true, that you were at some point just a bad person and everything that happened was what should have happened, or do you think differently about yourself now and retrospectively about who you were back then?
I definitely think differently of how I was back then. I no longer think I was a bad person. I was just, well, human, to be honest. And growing up in situations that, are, how do I put this, are restrictive like that.
Hmm.
Um, comes a time when you leave and you just don't know what to do. you know,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden, you get into the wrong people because they see that vulnerability with you. And that's why I was got into a abusive marriage, and because I didn't know. And I look back at it now and I was like, man, I was just a scared kid. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's taken a
So you
lot.
and your daughter is older. It should be, based on what you're saying, maybe somewhere near her teen years, in that realm,
Yeah,
maybe
she's 12.
now. So,
Yeah.
what are you telling her? What are you telling her that's different than what you were told? What advice would you give to men and women and families and people who are bringing up children? Maybe they're in similar kinds of religious systems that are very, very structured, if you'll say. What are you saying? What kinds of messages should we be giving to, especially to young girls and even young boys, about how they should be in the world with others? What would you say to your daughter and to others?
What I try to tell my daughter, I've let her know that I have bad experiences. I'm an addict, and that I have been homeless. And, I've let her know. I'm honest with her, of course, less so degrees, but more so as she gets older, I'm more honest, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
age appropriate.
yeah.
And what advice I would give is, if you're any sort of situation like I was, is give your kids structure, but allow them to make their own choices, if that makes sense. So like, don't be like, oh, like take my daughter. She had a friend who was a very bad example, and we sat her down and say, you know, we were a little worried about this friendship of yours. It seems like it might be a hazard to your mental health. And we had her talk through it, and she ended up making the own decision that maybe
Hmm.
she shouldn't have her in her life. So kids are really perceptive when it comes to guiding them on the right path.
Hmm.
They'll find it, but just don't make those decisions for them, because then they'll just resent you for it.
Now that process you use with your daughter, was that a process you learned during your therapeutic work or your addiction treatment?
Yes, partially it was. A lot of it was fall down, get back up again.
Uh huh.
There
Yeah,
have been
yeah.
times I was crazy, but you know, she stuck through it with me. So yeah, it's been a
Do you remember
trial and
what that
error.
technique is called, perchance?
I don't, to be honest.
It's called motivational interviewing.
Ah, okay. Good to
And
know.
it is a process that people can go through that helps you look at what you're doing and what's going on and decide for yourself whether or not the simple way is it working for you, right? The simplest way to answer that to say it is, well, how's that working for you, right?
Hmm.
And if everything's good and there's no problem, then there's no need for change. But if you once you determine that there is a problem or there might be a problem or could be a problem, then we're open to moving through the change process.
Yeah.
One of the things that we teach people is that change is not something that happens for many people instantaneously. Change is a process,
I'm
and
still going through
that
it. Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes they'll say, well, that person's, when they have to hit rock bottom, oh, they're just in denial that they have a problem. And what we say is, no, people aren't in denial. They're just in an early stage of change. So, maybe I work with my staff and my team and we'll do a session on stages of change in this process so people can learn more about what that means and how to move through that process. But what you did with your daughter is very much saying, hey, we've got a concern. Do you think there's a concern? Is there a concern for you? And she had said, nope, I think I'm good. You all would have had to say, okay, and wait until you come to the conclusion that it's not a healthy relationship, right? Not a good friendship. Um, that doesn't mean you don't push. There are things that you can do along the way in each process if someone doesn't see it. But one of the great ways that this process works is by asking people, who else do you know that might have, what would someone else say? What would your dad
Mm,
say? What would your mom say? What would your brother say? What would your cousin say? What would your best friend say? Would they say there's something? What would they say about this? Would they say there's a concern or an issue? And it gets people
absolutely.
thinking. The power of it lets the person take their own journey and their own responsibility for where they are and make their own choice without feeling pressured. Because if I make you do something, then if it doesn't work or does work, it's on me, not on you. If you do it
Exactly.
of your own, it's either going to work or not work. And if it doesn't, you can keep trying until you get something else that get it to work for you, right?
Mhm.
But if it doesn't
Absolutely.
work, hey, it's your fault. If this didn't work, I'm going back to what I was doing. I was fine until you bothered
Exactly.
me.
Exactly. The other kind
Yeah.
of therapy I do love is cognitive behavioral therapy. That
Yes.
helped me get a lot past. I'm going to tell you, a lot of my drug uses was because I needed therapy. I was self medicating. Let's be honest.
Mhm.
And um, the cognitive behavioral therapy really turned my life around, realizing that, the abuse that I suffered, I thought it was my fault. No, it wasn't. I would tell my best friend if she was going through that no, get out of there. There's something wrong. It's not you, it's them, that sort of thing. And so it's really taught me also how to talk with my daughter as well. Just reaching out to her like, hey, if your friend was doing this, what would you say to them? That sort of thing. It's really, really helped also.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you talked about that. You brought up the CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. It is a tremendously great tool as well. And what I love about these particular programs and these ways of operating is that they're person centered. They allow you to adapt to the person that is going through the process. And I'm only
Exactly.
mentioning that here in this podcast just as a way of helping people who might decide I think I might need some help, but I don't want to feel bad about myself. I don't want to feel bad about my whole life. Like there's good stuff in me still, even if I've done some things that I may not be happy about right now. And we have processes that help you feel good about yourself along the way, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and it's not about demonizing anyone and saying bad things. And that's why we can work on eliminating stigma. because it's not about shame and guilt and blame. It's about, hey, these things happen. These are the choices I made. These choices are working for me, or they aren't working for me. Maybe they worked at one point. I mean, I would imagine that when you were using in the earlier days, that self-medicating worked, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I have PTSD from everything that's happened throughout my life. And so it very honestly was helping me chill out. I couldn't go if I wasn't high. I was shaking, I was stuttering, I couldn't function. And it was the only way I could get through my day without reliving the horrors that I'd seen and been through. So, absolutely, it worked at the time, but then I realized I had to get to the deeper underlying issues rather than focusing on the short term.
Right, because it's working on the surface, but it's not really working underneath. And
Exactly.
it's also creating new problems, right? So we want to encourage people, if you are watching this, you happen to come across this, and you are in the midst of using and trying to address and deal with things in your life, that there are different ways. I don't want to always say it's better, but there are different ways to do that, the ways that won't also cause other harm to your family or to your own health or to your livelihood. So there are ways. And so if you're interested, you can reach out to the crisis and suicide hotline that's there. You can also reach out to the DBH helpline, which is going to come right across the screen right now as you're looking down there. 8887 We Help is how you can say that if you don't want to remember those numbers. You can also reach out to us at Energy Incorporated, and we'll have you can some information we'll show on the screen in just a little while, where you can reach out to us if you want to for our support as an advocacy and support organization. We're happy to point you in the right direction, hold your hand as you go through a process and get connected to the kind of care and services that you need. So, Lily, tell us what's going on with you now, and how is life different than when you were moving towards sobriety?
Oh, I'm able to sit back and just see life as it is. I know that sounds crazy. When I finally jumped over that I really don't want to use anymore. I remember going through there and I was going through a mountain pass and these mountains were just soaring up into the sky with snow and just beautiful. And I remember going, I've gone this path hundreds of times and I don't remember ever being this beautiful. And it's just being able to take in the small things. I notice nature now more than I used to ever. I notice the good in people more than ever. Um, I just have a really more positive outlook on life. I mean, and I was able to say, "Hey, I have dreams and aspirations. I'm going to do them." So now I'm a business owner and I have employees, and it's been very satisfying knowing the heights that I can reach after having been a user for so long.
Absolutely. And it's great that, when people live in major cities like in the DC metropolitan area, sometimes it does take going away from what you're used to and seeing life and nature differently. And, going out and getting on the highway and going to some of the neighboring areas, going out to the beaches of Virginia or Maryland, for instance, or going to the mountains in Maryland, or even in Virginia, to just be around nature, to breathe fresh air, and to be away from the everyday folks that you might be around. Not to say you're avoiding people, getting away from them, but just experiencing something different so you can clear your head, right? You can,
Absolutely.
and then when you come back, then you can say, "I'm good. I'm strong. I know what I'm going for. I know what I'm doing. I've been clear. I have a clear plan." Right. I
Mhm.
think that's really important for people to be able to find spaces, and if you can't get away, being able to find a way to get away even within your community, in your neighborhood. Maybe it's at a library and spend a day there and just kind of be in the quiet space and read some things, or watch some videos and DVDs and things in the library on their material, on their devices there. Or taking a walk and sitting in a park in the area. We have a beautiful regional park here, Rock Creek Park, which is huge. And so I would encourage people to, just, if you've never gone there, and we have people in the DMV area that have never gone other parts and seen things that we have. We have Haynes Point and other places that you can go to and just sort of be with yourself, with nature, with the universe, with, if whatever spiritual path you may be on, you can find some space there to do that. Lily, it is such an interesting story that you have, that you shared with us. Can you tell us if we go still a little bit further back in time again, tell us a little bit more about what life was like in the midst of your journey towards sobriety prior to getting there. You, as much as you're willing to talk about, because I know
Of
sometimes
course.
these things are difficult to. Well, I don't want you to relive it, and bring up things that are hard to talk about. But for those people that are saying, well, it's really not that bad, and who don't know and don't understand, and for those people that might be family members, what things might they look for? What could they observe that might tell them that there's a concern or a need around substance addiction or use or abuse?
Absolutely. My biggest tell, I can, for people wanting to see maybe some ideas, that my biggest thing was I hid from my family. My family didn't even know where I was for a couple of years. I was so embarrassed, I guess you could say, that I was doing something that I knew was not conducive to a happy lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
that I was just hiding from them. I would call every now and then to let them know I was alive, but that was pretty much it. And um, with especially with opioids, just not finding any excitement in life anymore.
Mm.
Um,
So,
when
so I'm
you're
sorry. So you're saying that you isolated and sort of
Yes,
disappeared, and then your enjoyment of life, people could see that you weren't enjoying life. You didn't look like you were enjoying life.
exactly. It was just, I want to say it was like so beyond mellow. It was like there was nothing that piqued my interest, I guess is the best way you could put it. It was like, oh, cool, there's something there, whatever. It wasn't, um, there was a definitely dullness to everything around me.
Mm,
And that's what I felt I needed, was to dull everything, because if I felt too much.
mm, mhm,
And so, I mean, physical signs, you can see it, droopiness in the eyes. You can see, just nodding off randomly, that sort of thing, if you're looking for physical signs of it. But the biggest for my family and friends was my stepping away,
mm.
and not and hiding it as much as I could. Isolating. That's the word. Isolating
Yeah.
myself.
And did people try to reach out to you? Were they successful ever in reaching out and trying to draw you back in ever, or did you have to go and do your thing before you were willing to go back?
I had to, me personally, I had to do my thing before I was willing to go back. I'm one of those people. It's once I set my mind to it, I'll go full bore. But um, if people try to push me, I would have been like, nope, nope, I'm fine.
Hmm.
Don't push me. I'm a very stubborn. Is the best way to put
Are
it.
there things that people could have said, like other people, and obviously you were in other environments with other people that
Yeah,
were maybe using as well. Are there things that family members or people could say that would be encouraging, that would be inviting, even if you don't fully take it, but to let them know that you're still wanted, still appreciated, still loved? Like, or what are things that people could say that you as an addict at the time might have been able to hold on to at least a little bit, if anything?
the biggest thing for me would have been somebody if they came to me and said, "Hey, I understand that you're going through something bad, and when you're ready, I'm there for you."
Mm,
Letting
okay.
them know that when you hit that point, you do have somebody there for you, because it's so scary going, well, if I do this, I'm not going to have anybody. I'm still going to be alone, and it
Mm,
terrifies you even more. And so letting me know that there was somebody there, that once I decided I was going to get clean and I was going to straighten my life up, um, it really resonated with me, and I took it to heart.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. And you mentioned about being embarrassed. Can you talk more about that embarrassment? And the reason, Lily, is I really want folks that watch this that are not dealing with the substance use issue, but have people, family, friends, community members that might be, to really understand what's going on in that person, so they can be more empathetic and more engaging and more encouraging, right? But
Of
also
course.
those that may be going through it will hear you hopefully and recognize that they're not alone in what they're feeling, and there is something on the other side of those feelings. So if you could share a little bit more about what that embarrassment was and why you felt it and how you got there and what you did with it, any of that.
Of course. My mom, like I said, was part of still part of this religious group, and they're very, we're clean. We're how do I put this? We are pillars of the community, and we are pillars of what's everything good in society, that sort of thing. And then I had my dad, who is my parents are divorced. My dad and my stepmother, who are very, I don't want to say political people, but almost that very kind of higher class. No, I don't even want to say that, but that upper middle class, straight laced, that sort of thing. And same with my brother and my sister and all of that. And so I knew what I was doing would not meet up to their expectations. And I was embarrassed that I let myself fall so far that I felt like I needed to use drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was ashamed because I knew that I had potential, and I knew all my family were expecting a lot of this potential from me, and I was just failing it. So I was embarrassed to come to anybody about it.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you finally go to someone? You said that you got pregnant and that pushed you, and you had already not been using for a while. After that, though, to not go back to it, what did you do? How did you? I knew your daughter was a great motivator for you, but what were the things that you did to? Because having a baby is stressful
Just a little
and
bit.
itself. So, what did you do to get yourself to the right kind of support network, the right kinds of places, and to stay mentally where you needed to stay, so that you would have a better experience?
I took myself out of the situation completely. I moved
Okay.
towns.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know anybody that did drugs where I was at. Um, and I reconnected with my family. And yes, those ties are very tentative at first because we're all feeling each other out with how we felt about each other. But as they realized that I was going to continue on my path to sobriety, those ties got stronger, and now me and my family are closer than we've ever been. But
Mhm,
honestly, the moving completely away from it, I know
mhm.
it's sometimes not possible, but even something like blocking somebody's phone number who is a trigger for you can even help.
Talk about so you're using such great words. Talk a little bit more about this concept of triggers. What do you mean by that? Because for someone who's is being triggered but doesn't know they are, what
Mhm.
is that, right? And people that know what it is, and so what? Tell us more about how you discovered a trigger and what you mean by blocking somebody who is a trigger for you.
Of course. So my triggers, because I do suffer from PTSD rather severely. I Anything that decided to evoke that fight or flight response was, I'd rather get high, so I'm just too don't care about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. So things like I'm standing in a grocery store and somebody pushes up against me. That's a trigger for me.
Mm,
Because I can't be I don't like to be touched from my domestic violence situation I was in when I was
I got
younger.
it.
So
Uh-huh.
things like that, a loud noise that it's unexpected, even stuff as simple as that, but as much as my ex-husband trying to contact me out if he gets out of prison, that sort of thing. It can be any thing from those two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts you in the mindset of where you were and the reason why you wanted to get high.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. It's any action or any event. It could be anything really. Even a smell can sometimes trigger me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's when you get into those times you're thinking, oh, I'd rather just disassociate and get high instead. And so I tell you, my biggest thing that I've learned to do to move past that, I still have triggers that they'll never stop, but I meditate now.
Okay.
And that has really helped me keep it awareness of my internal self a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
to prevent those triggers from having me go into a bad cycle.
Is that a meditation on like a routine, like you wake up and meditate, or before you go to bed you meditate, or when you start feeling a bit of anxiety or stress you stop and meditate? Like, how do you use meditation in this context?
Oh, I use it all sorts of ways. I'm a really big proponent of meditation. So I
Uh-huh.
have in the morning, I do like a quick 10-minute meditation where I just, sit down, breathe. If there's a trigger happening to me at a specific moment, I will remove myself from the situation, close my eyes, and do a cycle of breathing. It can
Mm,
make take a minute. It only take a few seconds, but just to get myself back on an even keel. And then at night, I like to do a little bit longer of a meditation just to help balance myself, look at my how my day was and what could have done better, or successes. But it really helps level you out, and so you don't have those peaks and valleys where you're wanting to adjust them, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And are there some resources that you use for meditation? Are you doing it with online, or do you walk it through yourself, or is there how are you using it, and what resources may could you offer to people that are maybe watching this podcast?
Um, there are so many sources on meditation. It's really become mainstream right now. So I first got into it. I just went online and I was like, I need breathing exercises. And in YouTube, I just searched breathing exercises or meditation. And I actually first started it with doing sleep meditation. And it's one of those talk downs that help you fall asleep, because I have a very hard time falling asleep. And it just started to expand from there. And I started getting books. There's great examples. There's Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk. He taught me a lot with learning how to meditate. There's
Mhm.
also a book just called Breathe. I don't remember who it's by, but it just teaches you how to breathe in a way that helps focus you. And it's absolutely amazing, the kind of resources. But like I said, YouTube is amazing.
I think you're great, and you're right. And we have actually a specialist in the DC area that that we might need to get on the podcast to come and do a breathing thing. She does this amazing breathing work. And when I first met her and encountered her, I'm like, what is this? And I'm a dancer and performer. So, and, I do
Mhm.
motivational speaking and counseling. So I know about meditation, I know about breathing, but she was on a whole nother breathing level. It was a whole nother thing. And I'm like, what is this? Right. But she's
Eh,
so passionate about it. And she comes out and she teaches about it and does workshops and presentations on it. So, we might need to get Io on here to share that idea, because I think you're right. There's some things that people can do on their own as they want to get started to do things. They can do some breathing exercise. They can look up people like James Nestor and others, and other, like you said, the YouTube channels. I do some meditations, and you can get sophisticated with those YouTube things. You can put in the kind of meditation you want. So if you want one for balance, or you want to balance your chakras, or you want one for resting or for sleeping, or you want one for focus or for channeling energy, there are lots of different ways that you can utilize that resource to get
Absolutely.
what you
They
want.
actually they have everything from, aligning your chakras and being one with the universe to just teaching yourself how to breathe. I actually listened to a book that was how to sit.
Mm,
And it's amazing, just that simple, just learning how to actually just sit, not worry about anything. And it was really actually enlightening. But yeah, it could be anything from just learning how to sit to becoming one with the cosmos. So
yeah. And they have different times, so you can do one for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. They have some that you can play. Sometimes I play things over the course of the night. When I have trouble sleeping, I'll just turn one of those 30, 40 minute, hour, 2 hour, um, you know, beta music things or whatever, and just let
Mhm.
it play as I go to sleep, and it just kind of soothes my inner consciousness as well. So I think it's great. Thank you so much, Lily, for sharing the ways in which you are moving through your experience. And so I have a question for you. It's more of a controversial question, so I want to get your
Sure.
take on it. Some people will say I'm an addict and I'm always an addict. Other people will say, no, I was an addict. I was addicted. I have gotten help and I am sober, and I've been sober for a long period of time. And so I no longer use that phrase. Is there a time that you think where you would not say I'm an addict anymore and say I'm a former addict, or I used to be an addict, or I used to be addicted or something? Or will you always think that, do you subscribe to the idea that you're always an addict and you're always working against going back into those choices?
Of course, I'll be honest, I waffle back and forth on this one myself.
Mm,
I am an addict, because if I have somebody who sits down and puts some heroin in front of me, I don't know what I would do.
mm,
I've removed myself so far from it that it's not going to happen, but it's I don't know. So in that way, yes, I still feel like I'm an addict, but at the same
mm,
time, I because I was doing a lot of drugs. It wasn't just opioids, and those other drugs. I have literally found, because I found something that somebody had dropped in a bathroom at public place. I don't even remember where it was. And I just flushed it. And so I knew for a fact that, hey, I'm not addicted to that anymore. It was so easy for me just to throw it out, instead of be like, ooh, what's this? So I waffle back and forth. Yes, I am an addict. I have addictive tendencies. I know that I do,
Mhm.
but
Does
I
this
know
show
I've
up in
had
other
to.
places for you besides the use of substances? Does that addictive tendency show up in other places?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. I know this sounds really ridiculous. I read, and I read to the point where I listen or read more than 200 to 300 books a year. So yes,
Wow.
I do have an addictive personality when it comes to
Wow.
stuff like that. But at
So
least it's a little bit
that's like
healthier
almost a
than.
book a day.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I read everything from sci-fi to uh, meditation stuff to fictional to autobiographies. So I just love learning so much, but it really does show that I do have that addictive personality. And some people do show those traits more than others.
Hmm.
Um, I was a smoker for a lot of years. I quit for 2 years and I went back to it, unfortunately. Um, Working on quitting again, but
Okay.
it yeah, it is. Like I said, it's
We can share some resources for you on that.
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Um, but I do have addictive tendencies. So yes, I'll always in some way be an addict, but I am a recovering addict.
Okay.
And former addict is in I am not giving into a lot of my addictions anymore.
That's beautiful. I think your story is amazing. And I think what you will teach your daughter and are teaching her and other people who will come across this and people that come across you in life, I think you are bringing such value. And so appreciate you sharing your story and your time with us. Helping us dig deeper into the realities of what life is like for someone who has gone through an addiction cycle or an addiction process, and is healing from and continues to heal from it. Thank you so much for being willing to share that with us and your insights, especially around meditation and around how families and people can reach out to and what they could say to someone that might be helpful for them and give them a lifeline. I think that's
Absolutely.
critical. So thank you.
I'm always here for anybody that is going through trauma. I thankfully was able to help somebody who's going through domestic violence situation as well, other people who've been addicted. And it brings joy to my heart knowing that I can help them by just telling my story. Because honestly, sometimes you just need to hear, hey, somebody else can do it. I can do that too.
Yeah, clearly. Hmm. And that's what this is all about, right? Someone
Yeah,
else has been where you are. Someone else has been in these shoes, and people have come out. People have come through on the other side of the addiction. They've come through on the other side of the trauma and the pains that have happened in their lives. And so, Lily, you are an amazing example of that. And so we're grateful to you. We're grateful to the other guests that we've had so far in these seasons that we've been doing this, and for those that are coming along. You all want to stay connected with us at Energy Incorporated. You want us like and share and be connected to us on our social media. These stories are coming to you live and fresh. Well, pre-recorded now, but they're live, people. When we do them, these are not scripted. We have a outline of what we want to do, but these are not scripted. I don't know everything that anyone's going to say before they say it, and they don't know what questions are going to come from what's going to happen. These are real people, real stories, and we're talking about real solutions. That's what we do here at Energy Incorporated with our Thrive Live podcast. And so, series, this program is sponsored in part by opioid response grant from the Department of Behavioral Health in DC, and we are so grateful for them and their support and the opportunity to share and to work and to bring this to our communities in the ways that we're able to do that. And so we look forward to talking with you, seeing you again soon. Keep watching, keep listening, keep working, keep loving each other and supporting each other. And together we will make our way through this opioid crisis and through these times that we find ourselves in. Thank you again so much, Lily Evergreen, for being here. And for all of you watching, we'll see you again real soon. Remember, real people, real stories, real solutions. Thrive Live, Energy Incorporated.